Okay, team, this week we have a fella by the name of Steve Benson. He is the CEO of Badger Maps, and he's actually he's in sunny Spain in Granada. But he's actually San Francisco based originally, and he's going to tell us all about it. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, Steve, you're very kind, indulging me to come on your lovely, lovely show. And I thought the best thing I could do is actually get you back on mine. And outside, how long have you been doing outside sales talk as a podcast? Your own one.
I think we started that around 2016.
Wow.
So it's been like, I don't know, 8, 9 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You can already hear the sort of the chill sort of San Francisco sort of accent there. But are you originally from San Francisco or from
I
California?
actually, I grew up in Chicago originally, and
Right.
then I moved to San Francisco right after college. I went to business school out there, and then I stayed out there working at some big tech companies for a few years, and then about 13 years ago now, I started Badger Maps.
Awesome. Steve, how did you get into Badger Maps? Like, take us back to how it all started, and then we'll talk about Badger Maps and territory management and the things that we're going to cover today.
Yeah, for sure. So my background was in field sales, and specifically in technology. And so after business school, I worked at IBM, and then I did a stint at a software company called Autonomy, and then I went to Google, and I was kind of a part of selling Google's cloud-based technologies for the enterprise. It was called Google Enterprise at the time. It was things like Gmail, Google Maps API. And eventually I ended up specializing in the Google Maps API. And in the course of working with that and being a field salesperson, I kind of was selling the thing that I understood could solve a problem that I had and many other field salespeople had. So I can't qualify for being a creative genius. It's probably more right place, right time sort of situation, but I did have the tools on hand to solve a technical problem that I understood. And it was kind of, this was 2010, 2011 when I was thinking about this stuff, started the business in 2012. And so the world of mobile was changing quickly. And this was a mobile problem that field salespeople had. And if you remember that back to that time, it was hard to even you could get directions on your phone, but they weren't great. It was pre turn by turn. That came out maybe in 2010 or 11 on the Android first before the iPhone. Anyway, it was the concept of getting a salesperson's data on into a mapping environment so that they could figure out what to focus on, build a route. Like that seemed like the far off future at the time, but it was clear where and I think this is true with technology in general. You always want to think about, well, where's it going to be in 3 years? And at Google, we had all these posters up on the wall at the time saying, imagine what will be possible when the mobile internet's 100 times faster. And because they're like a huge constraint on solutions of this nature at the time, mobile solutions, was just the slow speed of the mobile internet and the RAM of these little tiny devices. They just weren't that strong. The first version of the Badger Map didn't even work on the iPhone or the Android. It only worked on the iPad because that was strong enough to run an application of that nature. And at the time, it was a very simple application. We were just literally putting, people's customers on a map and allowing them to colorize the pins. They could like look at a map of their territory and see everything, and then they would make decisions from there, but it wouldn't build a route for them. It couldn't optimize a route. It couldn't, it wasn't doing any of the 10 things we do today. So it was very basic.
Now, before we jump into Badger Maps, I reckon the listeners would be very intrigued. Tell me, what was it like working at Google?
I mean, it was a cool time to be there for sure. I mean, it was still a relatively small company. I mean, it was, the group that I was working with, their enterprise software group was a small organization within a big company, and so they were a medium sized company, I guess, at the time. But it was, they were doing really cool things. They've always been a company that has created a lot of innovative products that change things, and they were it was a time where they'd really solved a major problem, a handful of major problems for consumers, and they were looking at, hey, how do we do this for businesses? Is there, should we buy Salesforce? Should we buy LinkedIn? Like, they were thinking about things like this at the time. So it was an exciting time to be there for sure.
Tell me about these results only work environments. Were you exposed to that? The old FedEx days, on a Thursday afternoon in Google, the engineers were given 20% of their time to do whatever they wanted.
Sure.
Did you see any of that or witness any of that? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that was kind of a part of the culture at the time. We actually still do that at Badger. We try to encourage. It's probably not 20% of their time, but for the engineers, we try to encourage them to spend their time solving interesting problems. That is totally just guided by what they are interested in doing, what they're interested in creating. And we'll also do what we call a hack week, where the engineering team will just they'll team up at different sizes. Maybe 3 guys will work on something, maybe 2 people, maybe someone does something on their own. But the engineering team kind of just works on whatever they think is interesting, and some really cool things have come out of that.
Very, very cool. What an interesting background you've got, Steve. Obviously with your IBM field service days, and then Hewlett Packard, and then into Google. And you've seen a lot. So, guys, we're talking to a guy that had a lot to do with Google Maps. So it makes a lot of sense that we're going to be talking about routing and territory management. And I'll do Steve and my terminology a great disservice as I butcher all these technical terms in my butchered mongrel accent these days. But Steve, tell me, before we dive into what you do, tell me about some of the challenges and mistakes you saw as a pretty senior sales manager exec in the C-suite managing field service teams. Like, you can obviously talk about how it relates to territory management, and they bitch and moan that they're all fishing in different ponds and stuff like that. But like, what are some of the things that you saw? Because you're not only obviously an entrepreneur who's very successful doing what you've done, but you've managed some pretty chunky sales teams. So like, what were some of the biggest headaches or biggest things that you saw?
Well, I think with respect to field sales teams in particular, I think that they're found in industries where they have to get face to face with people, and there are some industries where you can just do things over the phone, and there are other industries where that would be crazy to try to do it that way. And for teams that are going into the field specifically, they have this additional constraint or challenge in their lives that what they do has to make sense geographically, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have a team that can sell the things that they're selling over the phone, and there are things like that, and there are things that you sell in retail, right? And you create a store and put up a shingle, and people come to you, or you have stores all over the country and people come to you. That's a very different sales motion than someone who has to go to their customers. And that process is riddled with inefficiencies, basically. And it's not necessarily something that people are naturally great at. Our minds don't think in terms of mathematics and complex algorithms, and it's not the way we're built. And so there are a bunch of inefficiencies with dealing with the fact that they have to deal with the map. They have to do everything, and a field salesperson basically has to do everything that an inside salesperson has to do, but also has to deal with the fact that their customers are spread out. They have to get to them. They need to manage the territory in an efficient way. And as makes the math, that layer of complexity makes the math problem a lot more difficult. It makes it more difficult to decide where the lines should be drawn on the ground to make the territories in the first place for the management team. If you have 150 guys across Australia, where do you draw the lines? When you're actually going out into the field, and a lot of times it has to be planned out in advance, you need to, like, let's just say that you have the type of job where all your meetings really have to be worked out in advance. Maybe you can do some drop-ins, but it's weird when you do. Usually you just you need to make meetings. Then you really have to plan that out pretty far in advance. Now, other people, same job, field sales, they need to be able to make decisions on the fly. They can be out in the field and get pulled in to drive across across town or 2 hours away because an important customer needs something about something. They still need to be able to adjust and be efficient with their day. So they're managing the geographic element here. They're managing
Mhm.
prioritization and a lot of the same things that an inside salesperson would do, but also they have to keep in mind, where am I on the map, and what makes sense given that I'm limited to this particular area, the way there and the way back. What if I drove past this way? Who's important over here? Who am I due to see over here, or should I see? Who do I want to see strategically? Who would be good to upsell on this product, because that's what I need to focus on this month per my manager's orders. Like, there's a lot of complexity in the sales job already. I mean, we all know that it's one of the hardest jobs out there,
Mm.
and the people who actually have to deal with managing a territory need to deal with these extra layers. So I guess those were a lot of the problems that I saw and challenges that I saw. Frankly, I started the company because one particular problem just made me crazy, and that was I had flown to Kansas,
Mm.
which Kansas actually looks a lot like Australia. Very similar. You could drop yourself in a lot of Australia and drop yourself in Kansas and not know which one you were in. I had flown to Kansas, and I had a meeting with this executive that I was talking to about mapping, and they were in a town called Olathe, which is like a suburb of the main city in Kansas.
Mhm.
And then, or no, I'm sorry, I was near Olathe was the meeting with them, and then the meeting in Olathe, there was another CEO or another executive there that I had to see, and I thought that town was near Wichita, which is like on the other side of the state. And I was like, oh, too bad it's over there. I can't see that guy. And then I found myself being back at the airport, about to go back to California, and I was looking at I was looking at my reservations for like another trip in 2 weeks when could like figure out when to go back to this guy. And I figured out, wait, they were literally just 20 minutes away from where I just was. Now I'm coming
Oh,
back for no reason. And all I needed was to be able to view the 200 prospects and customers in the state of Kansas on a map. And if I could then filter them I actually hadn't even thought of the idea of filtering them down to who was important, to who I had an opportunity with in the CRM at the time. But just being able to see everything on the map would have meant that I would have saved the trip to Kansas. And I literally had the technology. I was literally selling the technology at the time to fix this annoying problem. And I was like, I have to do this. This is like, because it had been the problems. I'd been working with the problems for a while. And like, there's a bunch of mapping and geography problems that salespeople are dealing with. But this one, I was like, I have to do this. This is so stupid. Like no one solved this. How many people today have gotten screwed up by this sort of thing? It would be so valuable. And I personally know how to fix this problem. So like I should do
yeah.
it. So
Awesome.
that's the story anyway.
I got it. Like most business owners usually fix problems that they've, experienced themselves. I'll tell you what my problem is, just a quick story of mine, if you'll indulge me. So when I
Yeah.
was a grubby little backpacker and I was running around Sydney, and I had a carpet cleaning job, because you need two wages as a backpacker: one to live your life and pay your rent, and then secondly to get out of town and get to the next place. And I wanted to go and do some diving up in the reef and stuff like that, get my dive ticket. And so I had this crappy white van syndrome, and I parked it in you won't know this, but some of the Aussie guys will, like Balmain Tigers, which is a rugby league car park, highly illegal. And I'd run all over Sydney, and I wish I had. This would have been in 1999. Okay, just before the year 2000 Y2K. So we're going back a bit here. And I had a grubby little A to Z map that I just thumbed, and I literally had to direct myself manually because, of course, the internet had only really started coming out in 96, 97, so only talking 2 years later. And so I was having to manually do it by an A to Z map. And I now, when I teach my own students, because obviously, I've been on your show talking about what I do, but my rural guys, like I always say to them, everywhere is nowhere. Everywhere is nowhere. And so and this is what happens, Steve. They go to me, yeah, but I did 75,000 Ks last year. I did 75,000 Ks last year. And I must be busy. I must be productive. No. Were you busy? It's like the Jim Rohn quote. Are you are you spending major time on the minor stuff? Because when you're not traveling, you're not selling. So let me bring it back to what we were talking about. Is early on when you're a sales manager and you're managing field sales reps, much like rural agriculture companies, feed, machinery, genetics, agrochemical, crop science, all the guys and girls that I teach. What annoyed you most? Was it that they claimed they were busy or that they were managing their territory? Because as I say, it's complicated. And often we leave them to their own sweet devices, don't we? Go, hey, here's your keys, here's the car, here's the truck, away you go. And then what happens, Steve?
Well, that's the thing. I think everyone's like, oh, these guys are inefficient. They're not succeeding. They're not trying that hard. They need to try harder. They need to. It's like like things like how far did I drive is a vanity metric. It's like, oh, I'm trying so hard. Can't you see? I drove. Look how far I drove. But it's the managers
Badge
of
of
these.
honor.
Yeah, exactly. But the managers of these teams half the time they never carried a bag themselves, and so they don't understand a lot of the complexity that the people in the field are facing. But also they care about the result. It's like, well, but how much are you selling? And like, what was last quarter's revenue numbers? That's when you're getting evaluated. That's often what they're looking at. And I have found that some people are really good at this stuff naturally. So some field salespeople have learned their territory to a degree and just have the right mind for it, that they are able to figure out geography to a degree that they are doing a reasonable job. Obviously, they can't do what a computer can do, but like they can manage their day and their territory pretty well. Other people are awful at it. Even if you gave them a paper map and tools, they're like, it's a struggle if it's not, and though I think everyone benefits from having mapping, routing, time management tools. Some people, but it's not fair across the board. Some people benefit more than others, and you put the same two people in front of a customer, and they could both be amazing in front of the customers. But actually, success in sales is not necessarily determined about the quality of your pitch. A lot of it is how good were you at not only stuff that we help them with, but also things like how good are you at following up with leads? How good are you at overcoming objections? How good are you at sales is such a challenging job and career because you have to be so good at so many things, and if you screw any of them up, you blow the deal, right? Or you're just you don't get enough done to be successful and keep up with the pack.
And I'm just gonna jump in there and just sort of say something that's important around what you're saying is, I think really poor sales managers look at the top of the iceberg and they just look at the sales number and the quota. But below the waterline, as you say, Steve, there's all these other things that need to go on, efficient and effective management of territory, follow-up discipline, cadence consistency, quality of conversation, questions, mastering art of the conversation, preventing objections, identifying by committee. So many things happen below the waterline that a bad sales manager doesn't see, yet they need to coach on those things. So sorry, I had to just jump in because it's really important that, people like you reinforce that point.
Yeah, I think it's hard, especially people who haven't carried a bag. It's hard to even recognize all the ways that it's hard. And sometimes people, even when they've carried a bag, because they're naturally good at certain things, they're the worst at coaching on those things. It's just like, how do you do that? I don't know. I mean, I do it. It's naturally easy for me. Like this area.
I just close them. I just ask a few questions. It's like, no. That's not a replicable coaching tool, is it?
Yeah, it's and even the best sales managers, we can get better because I think we all have blind spots. And kind of the way I try to do it is like I try to look at a team and I ask myself, who's doing well for what reasons, and figure out who is good. And one good way to do this is to talk to, like, if there's other people that overlay with them, like SEs, sales engineers, and other types of people that overlay with several of them, like talk to the legal team that works with the salespeople on contracts, talk to all these different people that touch the team, and try to get a picture of who's good at what. And then once you've got that picture and you identify, hey, Sally's awesome at overcoming objections, or Sally's awesome at being organized, or one of the 25 things that you just listed, they are really good at this. have her teach the rest of the team how she approaches that. Why is she good at it? And pick her brain and like get like her to like present to the team on, here is how you do this skill in this job well. And that can relieve some of the pressure on the sales executive to like coach and teach everybody everything, because nobody's good at everything, right? But like you can identify who on the team, a team of 20 people, each one of them is good at something.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not the same stuff, and like they can overcome objections, they can close, they're organized, they understand the product really well, they understand the competitors really well. Like whatever it is, you have the like share the knowledge around the team, and you can up level everybody that way.
Oh, that sounds like a way more interesting Monday morning sales meeting.
Yeah, you can do one thing a week, right? Like it's a great, and you spend 10, 15, carve off, if it's a hour meeting, just carve off 10, 15 minutes to give to a rep to teach everyone else something important.
100%. Because, then, like you say, not everyone's good at everything. And then you show what good looks like in that particular domain or discipline. And then that monotonous Monday morning sales meeting actually becomes a coaching knowledge transfer meeting. And I think that's where you actually motivate versus demotivate. And the other thing you're saying here, Steve, as well, that sales managers don't have to have all the answers. We can use appreciative inquiry, i.e. looking what the things that are working really well and the people working really well, and say, Sally, take us through how you handle or prevent objections around timing or higher authority or an existing supply or price. And she can run a little, like a mini kind of masterclass or lunch and learn, because
Exactly.
knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied. Now, Steve, back to territory management. For our rural guys and girls that listen in Canada and America and UK and New Zealand and Australia, they drive some huge distances.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of these guys, say they're in Western Australia, they might have to drive 6 or 7 hours to
Sure.
get to a particular farmer and sell them something. So that's why I was really, really keen to get you on the show and understand the software better, because if they, some of the guys, we talked about it being a vanity metric. I did 75,000 codes in my truck. It's usually a bloke that's saying that. And I like blokes because I am one, but they're defending the busyness. But I always say, are you busy on the right stuff or are you busy on the wrong stuff?
Yeah.
They drive 7 hours to, Pilbara or somewhere in the vast remote areas of Western Australia, which is enormous because it's like Texas, Europe and Japan all in one state, like half of Australia. If they don't manage their territory well and they don't see farmers on the way up and the way down, they think just maybe doing one visit is productive. But like your software helps them route and sync to the CRM. Is that correct? So they can actually maximize. Because I always say to my kids, never waste a journey. So if they see something, pick it up on the way and bring it back. Don't pick up one thing, but 3 or 4 things. So it's not like all my students' children, but it's like never waste a journey. But we see so many rural reps waste a journey. So tell me, how does your software help them not waste a journey?
We do a bunch of different things, I guess, to help people be more effective and more efficient in the field. So the first, effectiveness is doing the right things. Efficiency is doing them, quickly and well, right? So I guess step one is, when you're a manager, did you design good territories for people? Did you design fair territories for people? And so we have a piece of software that looks at all of the opportunities, all of the prospects, all of the accounts, and you can build fair, compact territories for your 100 reps across the country. And that means designing 100, breaking up the country and by zip code into 100 territories that have similar, is optimized for those things. So, whatever the thing is, whether wherever you keep your data and whatever CRM, it's where we integrate with those, and so then we can bring it all in and build those territories out. That right there, that'll save you 5 to 7% of your sales force's activity, just running the territories through a piece of software and making them super fair and making the lines real clear on the ground. This is John's, this is Sally's, and also making, because they're designed by a computer, they're as compact as possible, right? Like it's a very complex math problem. A lot of people, I mean, 8 out of 10 companies hack this together in a spreadsheet, and that's it is
or a ruler on Google Maps, is just like, oh, like, hey,
yeah,
we're gonna go here. Yeah,
it's one of the easiest ways you can get a lot better coverage out of the team.
yeah.
Then for the actual sales rep, there's several levels here. The first is focusing the best places. Like, regardless of where a prospect is, are they far, are they close? Knowing where you're going to be able to generate revenue and focusing on the right people is kind of step one. And then getting the coverage of the territory, covering all the right people, and making sure you're doing that in an efficient way is the next step. So knowing, hey, here are the 30 people that I really need to hit because of this reason in my territory in the next 2 weeks or the next month or whatever your cadence is. And these are the interactions I really want to move down the field for whatever reason, whatever the business reason is. Helping them figure out who that is, and then helping them fill in the rest of their time in an efficient way around those excellent choices. So it's like, okay, well, next Tuesday, I'm seeing this really important person at 2 and this one at 10, and I know that they were on my key list. I reached out to them. They agreed to meet with me. And now I've got a 10 a.m. and a 2 p.m. What else am I going to do that day? I'm driving 2 hours to see this guy at 2 p.m. What's kind of the loop that makes the most sense, that allows me to see that people in that second tier of because I've got the first tier covered. I've figured out who I'm going to see, and I've kind of drawn the basic loops. But now it's the second step is to fill in everything else until your whole day is as full with the most important people as possible. And then, of course, doing that in a way that's optimized. And this is all this stuff is effectively impossible to do with the human mind, but software, computers are real smart and think real fast. And so you can design software to do this stuff very quickly and easily for people. So concepts that are, the trick for us is balancing. You want to enable the rep, because the rep knows all these things about their territory. They know where they need to focus. So you want to give them the tools that then they can then, play the software like a piano to get what they want out of it.
Yeah, well said. Now I got a couple of questions, because I imagine with your very clever brain and all your Google experience and the maths and the computing and the algorithms, is sometimes if we leave reps to manage their own territory, some of them can do it well and they're self-taught and they're vets, or they're just that way inclined. Probably most of them don't manage it to the efficiency and effectiveness that we just talked about. Now imagine with Badger Maps, you're optimizing it almost, or routing it. We don't say routing here because that's a bad word here in New Zealand and Australia, but routing, almost like a haulage, trucking, Amazon delivery kind of company. Like you're almost using the same kind of disciplines around that, I would imagine. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's a button that you can press in our app that just gives you the best way to do it. You're like, hey, you kind of know, well, I know I'm going to see this person. I know I'm going to see this person. And you just take your finger and trace around on your iPhone and grab everyone who's kind of in that area. And then it pops up a list of everyone you just grabbed. And you can be like, no, yes, no, yes. Well, I guess you don't have to say yes. It's automatically yes, unless you press the little X to make them go away. And then you press a little button that says optimize, and it gives you the best way through all those.
Beautiful. And that's like just at a touch of a button. Now, I've got another question. I'd be really interested in your answer. When I'm training sales managers, they ask me a question: how many people should my rep see per day? And I always say, obviously, it depends.
Yeah, it depends on a lot of things.
It depends on a lot of things.
Rule of thumb, I would say you should look at what they're seeing. If they're seeing right now, they should see 20% more. If you're not using software and you're not giving them the tools to do this well. If you, with a piece of software that helps them do this and manage their lives, on average, your reps will get 20% more meetings and drive 20% fewer miles. And I'm not sure why that is, why it all lines up with the 80-20 rule, but that tends to be what we see when we
Yeah.
interview people after they're using it. It's like, and a lot of people, we have decent data on this because a lot of people track it, right? They track how many meetings. Now, some people get 4 meetings in a day, and you're bumping them to 5. Some
Yeah.
people, we literally have people that are doing 30 meetings a day, but they're not
Mm.
really meetings the way, they're
Yes.
interactions. They swung by somewhere, they dropped off samples, and it's just as valuable as sales interaction, but it's a very different strategy. It's a different type of interaction, right?
Yeah.
Than oh yeah, I met with, and some salespeople meet with one person a week, and that's, but it's they're selling airplane parts, right? So
Yes.
it's expensive. So
Exactly.
it just kind of depends. Different people have different cadences. There's no absolute right answer. I would say there's industry norms, and doing it by the seat of your pants, kind of guessing and using it's like how much can how many people's taxes should an accountant get done using a pen and paper? Well, not that many. How many more would they get done with Excel? Well, more. How many more would they get done with accounting software? Well, more. And so,
Yeah.
it's similar. It's like, depends. How many should they do in total? Well, was that a big company's taxes they just did that it took 3 weeks of work? Or were you doing 6 people's taxes a day because it's just their individual taxes, and you could whip right through it with software, and there was less complexity to it. So there's no right or wrong answer. I would say that the range is, for field salespeople, tends to be between 4 and 20. I have heard of more, but that's rare. But I would say most people are doing 6 to 8 that I talk
Yeah.
to
Good.
over the
Good.
years.
I say 5, to be proud of yourself and look in the mirror and say you've had a productive day. And I love the fact how you can use the software to say, right, I'm seeing what I affectionately call my alpha farmers, my key people, my A's, my tier ones, whatever you want to call them, and I'm going to cluster and then route and optimize. So that's what the software does. Now I've got another idea, and this might sound really weird. I bet you've already thought of it because you're way cleverer than me.
Well, and to your last thing, I think that's super important, and that has to be done
Vary
with
from
their
a
minds.
psychological
The
point of view.
alpha, the A, B, C, D,
Yeah.
what, and we can help them do that with our filters and colorizing of the dots. We can help them be like, well, if they don't have it organized, and sometimes they'll do this at the national level. The sales ops team will look at 6 different things, run it through an algorithm, and figure it out in the CRM system. They'll
Yeah.
break up the accounts A, B, C, D, but and I would recommend you let your reps like override it and go back and be like, that's not an A. That guy's brother-in-law works for our competitors. That's a D.
Yeah.
Or hey, yeah, I know this guy looks like a D, but actually he could make, just because he could make a big purchase because I know this, and this. So let your reps go over that by hand, but what we're doing is taking that information and making it actionable in the actual planning of their route, their time, their schedule in the field. And
Yeah.
and that's it's important to both categorize well and use those qualitative and quantitative inputs to figure out who should I be focused on. But then it's also important to have a process that you're able to, kind of actually get the coverage on those counts and be organized and
Got it.
go after them. And that's, software can help on that second part. But it can't do even if you're using software and complex systems and AI and everything else, I find the sales rep taking a pass at it has a ton of value too.
Oh, I totally agree. I think that's great advice. Do you able, because obviously farmers love baseline and benchmarks, and so do sales managers. We like to know. So when you then divide up your territories fairly, which is a really important word for reps for the obvious reasons, and they go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, Steve's got, he's got the best territory and I've got the crap territory and all that kind of stuff that goes on. So when you set those territories on density and do all the clever things that your system does, do you then set baseline and benchmarks for the sales manager to say, hey, Steve is achieving 5.7 appointments a day, and he has a similar territory to Sinjin, and Sinjin is only doing 3. Does it roll and rank that, or traffic light it, or does it
Yeah,
do that?
so there's a bunch of reporting that can go on, and you do have to, when you're managing people, account for the differences in their territories.
Mm,
Using software, you can, and a lot of people have built really unfair and inefficient territories. because it's impossible to do in a spreadsheet. Like it's impossible to be like, this is the United States, and I'm going to break up the United States into 100 fair things based on the distance the size of the territory in square miles and the revenue coming out of the territory and the opportunities, like the prospects we don't even know about, but we know because of the population density. We tell the dentists, we know there's this many dentists per person, and so we know there's more dentists there that we just don't even know about. Like figuring all this stuff out is literally impossible without software. Like and so people inevitably there's people are unhappy about the unfairness of the territories, and you a nice thing about using software is it immediately spits out you can have here's your 100 people and here's graphs on what the revenue is coming out of the territory and the size of that territory, and there is no way to do things perfectly, right? Like you have to make trade-offs. Like if the guy covering Utah and Idaho just is gonna have more drive time than the person covering Manhattan. It's just those are two different sales jobs. And one isn't necessarily harder than the other, but one does have more windshield time than the other. But less traffic. That's the good news. But there are other. But when you do have to kind of take that into account, like, well, this person's doing more miles, so they are doing fewer meetings, or and there is inherent unfairness at times, but it is the way to solve that is actually in the design of their comp plans. You can move the knobs and levers around, but if you can see what the individual characteristics of the territory are in clean little charts and graphs, you can see who kind of got screwed, and you can juice their you can juice what you can give it back to them basically in the comp plan for that territory. Like
that is such good advice. I hadn't even thought of that. This is why we get clever people like you on show, because naturally they might say, well, I'm in Manhattan and you're in Utah or Idaho or whatever else, and they're obviously two completely distinct territories in terms of density of customers and footprint and mileage, and not forgiving. There's probably not so much traffic in Idaho or Utah versus Manhattan and Central Park East, but obviously, but I love the compound where you can then obviously compensate for that and make it more fair, because as we know that fairness is a very, very important thing in human beings. Now, conscious of time, Steve, do you find, I have an observation that often it's a very sick and saddening irony that I see. Sometimes I see in my world, in rural, whether it's in Australia, New Zealand, wherever, Canada, etc., sometimes your worst reps are in your best territories, and it's sort of like an opportunity cost. Have you seen that? Have you seen that theme or that pattern emerge?
Well, I think it jumps out at you sometimes when it's happening. I think some territories are just better than others, and a lot of times if you don't realize why they're even better, it's hard to say. And so you'll see situations where someone's just kind of mailing it in and doing great, and you'll see other situations where someone's really busting their tail and not doing well. And there's often big questions as to why. Having an understanding of what's going on in the field allows you to manage for that and not fire the wrong guy and give the right guy, like tweak the right guy's territory. The guy selling certain types of database technology, and one guy has the Bay Area and the other guy has LA. The guy in the Bay Area has a huge advantage because that's where all the tech companies are. LA, you could look at it you could look at it and be like, oh, the population is 3 times bigger, and there's tons of, it's got a huge economy, but it's like, yeah, but not the kind of economy that buys as many databases. I mean, Netflix is down there, but it's just most tech companies are in the Bay Area, right? So you have to look at all, you have to really know the industry and be able to look at all this stuff and then figure out, okay, so this guy has a great territory and isn't even showing up for meetings. They're just taking orders off the fax machine here, off the email inbox here, and they're working 10 hours a week and they're killing their quota. That's great. I'm happy they're killing their quota, but that's you should be able to, if you were using a piece of software to look at what's going on out there, you would be like, oh, their territory is unfair. It's an awesome territory. We should split that 3 ways. And then that guy's immediately going to have to work the way anyone else is. And frankly, it's not that guy's fault. Like, you can't blame him. I mean, a lot of times they're working the same amount, but they're just doing way better. And it's because they're having more valuable meetings because they have a better territory and they're just printing money, right? So it's not. I think it's an extreme situation where someone just like mailing it in and not trying. A lot of times it's just unfair territories cause one guy to fail and another guy to really succeed, and causes a lot. It drives a lot of turnover and hurts people. But so that's the first thing to look at, is just the fairness of the territories, and then being able to see the other characteristics of the territories too, like how many. Like, maybe there's a reason why there's way more opportunities in this territory versus that one. And it might not be the rep's abilities to generate leads, or it might be that this rep is just awesome at generating leads, and this rep is great at closing but doesn't know how to generate leads, and it's a training issue. So it's hard to manage this stuff without seeing data and often really interesting findings. I keep saying I'm going to write a book about all the conversations I've had over the years, but the findings people have when they're just like, yeah, and I figured out that this person is running this territory without going into the field, and they're just collecting all the checks. Like it's
funny, Steve, like the use cases that must come out from the software that must surprise you. That must be surprising truth sometimes. So I'm looking forward to reading that book.
Yeah, I really should. It's funny because there's just so many weird. So we're not a vertical piece of software, right? We're not just for the pharmaceutical industry or something, right? It's like there's field salespeople in all kinds of random industries, and so the stories, the guy selling THC vape pens in Utah. That is a very different business than the guy selling computer hardware in Texas. And so but like there's lots of like they all kind of have these geographic problems, but we also solve a bunch of different geographic problems, and they're just tools. It's like it's like Excel. It's useful for lots of weird things in accounting and finance and figuring stuff out. So we give people the tools, but then there's a million funny stories about, what people learned and what they discovered once they were able to collect data from the field. I guess that's a big part of it. Is the reason these organizations are flying blind is they can't get their field salespeople to use a CRM and collect a ton of data because they're on the move in the field. And so it's like, well, I don't have time to VPN into the CRM. What I'm supposed to do, go to Starbucks and get on the Wi-Fi, but you give them software on their phone that has like a form technology, and it's like, yeah, I fill out those 10 drop downs, and they fired all that data back to the CRM. I did a speech to text, fired off, and all of a sudden, all this data is being collected, and then you can do things with that data once it's in the CRM. Now all of a sudden there's all these things that open up and all this stuff that you learn, and you product can get it's like you collect all this feedback from your customers that was just kind of going into the ether, right? Like but you can collect it all in a systematic way, and it can you can do all kinds of things with it.
Awesome. Now, my friend, I will have to leave because I've got to go and look after some rural sales managers, funny enough. But I really like this technology. We're obviously going to put some stuff in the notes. I think what Steve would agree on, we're solving one piece of the puzzle here. We're solving one piece of the puzzle. Like, territory management isn't the panacea, a bit like CRMs. It's not the panacea. Like, if everyone just uses CRM and then sales are fixed, then certainly I'd be out of a job. But it's only one part of the puzzle. It's one part of that iceberg. Steve, where do people go to find you?
Badgermapping.com.
Beautiful.
So it's called the Badger. The Badger Map's kind of the core product on the phone that does the routing and the mapping and the scheduling, the decision-making stuff. And then there's Badger Align, which is designing the territories, building the territories out. And then Badger Lead Routing is the thing that sends the right lead to the right person in an automated way. So there's kind of 3 major product groups.
So clever.
And you can find it all they're all linked together. So you can find it all from just the Badger Maps webpage. And then me, best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Just search Steve Benson Badger. I'll come up.
Now, very, very quick, because I don't want to be late for my guys. Badger? Where the hell did that name come from? Like, is that because you look like a badger, or what is it?
Yeah, so I went to the University of Wisconsin for college, and that is the Badgers.
Steve, I will love and leave you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you for having me on your Outside Sales Talk podcast, which we'll put a link into as well. Well done on such a clever product, which will help people's lives easier. Most importantly, help them more sales. So it's a real gem. You're a real gift to discover and come across, and the software as well. So we appreciate your time very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. This has been great.